Good morning class. Today's my topic of presentation is management of the patient with meningitis. So you know what do you mean by meningitis? Meningitis is actually a disease that is there is a inflammation in the meninges, all right, or inflammation or infection in the meninges. So first of all, there is a case scenario for you. The case scenario is a 15-year-old male who was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in April 15. He received 2 courses of chemotherapy with a partial response. In the beginning, 15 August, he was complained about an increasingly disturbed gait due to weakness. She also complained for the fever and vomiting and headache and drowsiness. And she complains of knuckle rigidity and photophobia. So what will be the diagnosis? If there will be a knuckle rigidity and photophobia, definitely it sure is going to be a meningitis. All right. Now the anatomy. So review of the anatomy is you just see over it that what is skin of the scalp and where is the cortex and where are the pia mater and arcanine matter and dura mater. All right. Next comes, this is the microscopic version in which the skull bone is visible, skin, dura mater layer and arcanine layer, subarachnoid space, pia mater and the brain. All right. So introduction. Although meningitis is notified disease, the exact incidence rate is unknown. In 2010, 4,20,000 deaths were there. In 2013, that is 30,03,000 deaths occur. It can occur as a complication of other disease, and 50% is an opportunistic infection. The meningitis, actually, the meninges, first of all, what are meninges? These are the layers of the tissue which actually separates the skull and the brain. All right. So the definition is meningitis, as the name suggests, itis means inflammation and infection. So acute inflammation of the meninges, either it is caused by the bacteria or caused by the virus. So route of entry of CNS entry is central nervous system. Like if there is a skull fracture or a bone fracture or trauma is there or RTA is there, in any kind of medical procedure or surgical procedure, along with peripheral nerves, and through blood or lymphatic system it can enter. Etiology, the causes can be classified into, it can be bacterial, it can be viral, fungal, or it can be inflammatory disease, cancer, or trauma to the head or the spine. All right. So pathophysiology, what will happen that when the bacteria enters into the bloodstream, either through the etiological factors like trauma or RTA, it enters into the mucosal surface of the cavity, which actually break down the blood-brain barrier, and it cross over into the brain barrier, and then it proliferates in CSF, due to which there will be inflammation in the meninges, and due to which there will be an increase in the intracranial pressure. So bacterial meningitis, it is also known as bacteria, means sepsis is there, so it is known as septic meningitis. It is very serious, which required emergency care, and there will be a permanent loss or permanent damage to the brain or brain cells, or which or disability or death. All right. It can spread through the coughing or sneezing. The treatment available is antibiotics as per causative organisms, and the causative organism or causative agents are Streptococcus pneumonia and meningitis and Haemophilus influenza. The percentage is given there. Now the tubercular meningitis. Tubercular meningitis is also caused by Mycobacterium tuberculi, and the infection with this bacterium begins usually in the lungs. 1 to 2% of the cases the bacteria travel via bloodstream. Unlikely, the types of meningitis is progressively very slow and symptoms are vague. So due to droplet infection, what will happen? There will be primary focus and bacteremia will be there, due to which the meninges and it enters into the meninges and the brain parenchyma, and then the rich focus due to the rupture into the subarachnoid space will lead to adhesion, vasculitis and encephalitis, which can lastly lead to hydrocephalus, cranial nerve palsies or internal carotid stenosis, or there will be a stroke or ICP will be increased. In viral meningitis, it is also a septic meningitis. Most common it is more common than bacterial form, and usually is very less serious. There will be a permanent brain damage after the infection resolves, or there is no specific treatment for this. So most of the patient recover completely on their own. All right. So in viral meningitis, actually the causative agents are enterovirus, adenovirus, arbovirus, measles, herpes simplex, and varicella zoster. In fungal meningitis, this is very much less common than the two other infections, and it is rare in healthy people. But in likely the person who are impaired immune system, means if the patient is having impaired immune system, the patient will lead to the fungal meningitis. Risk factors are systemic infections, viral RTIs, tobacco use, impaired immune system, and overcrowding. And vaccination, or see, it can be seasonal, whether it is in winters or spring. The clinical manifestation in children and adults actually are there will be a stiff neck, headache will be there, fever, vomiting, light sensitivity, means the patient will be sensitive to light, drowsiness or confusion, joint pain, and fitting will be there. All right. So the two main signs are there. The Kerning sign, as I told you in my previous class, the Kerning sign and the Brzezinski sign. So in the Kerning sign, what will happen? There will be a severe stiffness in the hamstring, causing an inability to straight the legs. While laying down, the patient won't be able to straight his legs when the hip is flexed to the 90 degrees. All right. And in Brzezinski sign, what will happen? Severe stiffness of the neck will occur, due to which the hip and knees to flex with the neck and flex. If you will flex the neck of the patient, the knees automatically will get flexed. All right. So this is a sign of Brzezinski's. Assessment and diagnosis, that is history taking, physical examination, CT scan and MRI we have to do, blood culture or sensitivity test we have to go for, and LP we have to do. LP we have to do because in lumbar puncture we used to collect the cerebrospinal fluid, due to which what will happen when lumbar puncture will be there. So we collect the CSF and then we go for the testing, so that we should classify whether the patient is in fungal meningitis, bacterial or viral. All right. So this is the CSF finding. That is, this one is the normal values of the CSF. This one is for the bacterial. This one is for viral, and for TB and fungal, these are the findings. So what will be the complication? The complication is sensorineural hearing loss, epilepsy, seizures, memory loss, paralysis, learning difficulty. All right. Behavioral difficulty will be there, decreased intelligence, septicemia or death may also lead. So what will be the medical management for this? In the bacterial meningitis, third generation cephalosporin, for antibiotic or cefotaximine or ceftriaxone we have to give IV, and vancomycin is added as it is the regimen, and in case of resisting, if it is resisted to the this third generation, then we can go for the vancomycin. Dexamethasone we can provide to the patient. Dehydration and shock can be treated with fluid therapy. Phenytoin in case of, because in meningitis it is a common cause that we can this can lead to the seizure. So for the seizure management we have to go for the epsilon of phenytoin. And what will be in the tubercular meningitis? In tubercular meningitis, that is the medication started with the anti-tuberculin drugs or anti-tuberculin therapy we have to give, like these medicine like first of all isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide and streptomycin. The second line of drugs with fluoroquinolones or aminoglycosides we have to give. The conventional therapy is given for 6 to 9 months, and in children BCG vaccine offer approximately 64% protective effect will be there. So vaccination is one important in the children as well. In viral meningitis, treatment is more supportive and no medicines are prescribed. In seizure prophylaxis, we have to give the lorazepam or phenytoin and barbiturates. And if the patient is having increased intracranial pressure, then we have to give the mannitol, that is 1 gram per kg, followed by the 0.25 to 0.5 gram per kg, that is 6 hourly we have to give, and dexamethasone rest is advised. In case of hydrocephalus is present, then LP shunt is required or ventricular shunt is required, and adequate hydration is to be maintained. Antipyretics if the patient is having fever, or antiemetics if the patient is vomiting. What will be the nursing management? Like assessment, admission, when the patient comes to you for the admission, then the baseline history we have to ask for the patient, and physical examination we have to done. We have to go for the vital signs, assessment and progression if the progression is critical. The patient is monitored for the life threatening complication, for example respiratory failure will be there. Nursing diagnosis like infected gas exchange will be there, related to decreased tissue perfusion, impaired physical mobility related to paralysis and fatigue, pain related to disease condition, or altered nutrition status less than body requirement related to dysphagia. High risk of for injury and related to seizure episode, impaired verbal function related to cranial nerve dysfunction, fear and anxiety related to loss of control and paralysis, potential for secondary complication. Now, to maintain the respiratory function, assess the respiratory rate and quality rate. You have to monitor the pulse oximetry. You have to monitor for the cardiac monitors as well. Monitor the patient for the respiratory insufficiency, and ventilatory support will be required if the patient goes very serious. Oxygen therapy also maintained. Chest physiotherapy you have to give. Elevation of the head of the bed, because if you will if you will keep the patient in a prone position, then ICP will increase. So we have to give the some little bit of elevation to the head of the bed, and monitor the vital signs. Suctioning is required. Now, ask the patient to reduce the effect of the physical mobility. Change position too early, because the patient won't be able to move. So every too early you have to change the position. Then the paralyzed extremities are supposed to do this. Like the patient is have paralyzed extremities, so what we have to do, we support for the functional positions. All right, we have to keep them mobilized. Range of motion exercises should be done by the physiotherapist in every 2 hourly, and use of comfort devices should be given. So adequate nutrition and hydration should be given. Use of elastic stocking, so to prevent the DVTs. Massage will be given, and hygiene maintenance will be there. For the nutritional support, we have to give from the NG tube feeding, as the patient is not able to eat anything, or the hard diet the patient can't follow. Then check the weight of the patient. Total parenteral nutrition if needed. Assess for the return of the gag reflex and the bowel sound before resuming for the oral nutrition. Monitor intake and output chart. Improve their communication by lip reading, use of picture cards, speech therapy, and give pen and paper to write. If the patient wants something, you have to give the pen and paper, right? Relieving fear and anxiety. So to relieve the fear and anxiety, providing information about the patient condition, positive appraisal, encouraging the relaxation exercises, and positive feedback. Clear their doubts, manage the patient with analgesic and diversional therapy. If you have any questions, you can contact me. Alright, so I would like to ask some questions. That is, a 10-year-old child diagnosed with meningitis admitted in the hospital. According to nurse, child plays which unit of the hospital? That is in strict isolation, with other older infant in respiratory isolation, with another child of meningitis. Second question is, during the lumbar puncture procedure, which position is to be given to the patient? Prone position, knee chest position, sitting position, or side lying position with his neck and head flexed? Third question is, which are the confirmed diagnostic tests done for the bacterial meningitis? That is blood test, CSF examination, urine test, or chest X-ray. So in these were your assignment. You have to do this assignment and email me. I had given you the email in your WhatsApp group. And what will be the the summary is, we had studied about the introduction, definition, incidence, cause and risk factors, pathophysiology, clinical manifestation, assessment and diagnosis, complication, medical and nursing management. These were my references. Thank you. And if you have any queries, kindly text me or email me or call me. All right. Thanks and have a nice day.